Hi everybody, Diana here. Welcome to this week's episode of Sew in Common Sunday. Thank you so much for joining me. Sew in Common Sunday is my weekly video quilting journal where I am sewing kind of for myself, but I give you some tips and tricks along the way too. You might also know my quilting library series. That's a quilting block video that comes out every Monday. And we go soup to nuts through how it's made, how you might be able to do it in a different way, that kind of stuff. So if you're new to piecing, quilt piecing, the video library could really help you a lot to learn a lot of new blocks. Or if you're just looking for a block that you want to know how to do, maybe it'll be there. I mean, that it builds up every week, so more and more are coming. And then, of course, there's my Good Gadget series, which I take a look at all the different tools and things that we use in quilting and sewing and talk about them and tell you if I use them differently or where you can get them, that kind of stuff. So I hope you enjoy those as well. So a lot of you know that I have been working on the Fat Quarter Shop's Sewcialites Sew Along. Now this Sew Along has ended, but all the patterns are still at the Fat Quarter Shop's website. And so I put a link below where you can find them. They've done a whole quilt. You could do the whole quilt if you wanted. There are like 36 blocks. There's a lot of them. A bunch of designers, each did 2 blocks. They're completely free. I mean, it was a super kind thing for them to do to keep us all going throughout this last year. So I came to it late. I found out about it late. That's why I didn't actually join the technical sew along, but I'm doing, I'm just picking some of the blocks I really like and doing them on my own. And so I did go ahead, I bought, you don't have to do this at all, but I bought the little binder they had put out because I finally have my page protectors in here. I know I've been showing individual sheets, but I finally have my page protectors in here. I'm printing my patterns out in black and white rather than in color. But when you go to the website and all, if you have a color printer, they will print in color for you. I'm doing black and white because they're all 2-color patterns. And so the black and white for me is just fine. So I have these in here as I'm going. And I noticed something this week when I picked up my block for this week. So far I've done 4. This is the sixth one this week. I know that someone that I know is out there, she's doing them. She's picked 25 of the blocks that she liked, and that's the kind of the way I'm doing it. I'm just picking blocks that I like. She's picked 25 of them, and she's doing them in the 6-inch size. So that's what's really nice about how they did these patterns. You can do them in a 3-inch finished, a 6-inch finished, or a 9-inch finished block. I'm doing the 9-inch myself. It's a little easier for me to work with my eyes, and it is it'll make the size wall hanging quilt that I want to make a little bit quicker than if I had done 6. And then last week I showed you though how you could take the 3-inch finished block and you could make them into little lavender sachets, which I throw in the dryer with the towels. Oh boy, did they smell good. So that's what I've been working on. But if you have never seen any of the previous Sew in Common videos, go check them out. A couple of weeks ago, we did some lives from IKEA, which were a load of fun. So you could check those out. And then I've been doing these Sewcialite blocks right now. When I'm done with these, I already have another whole series of stuff that I want to do. So not every week am I doing quilting blocks. So some weeks, like a few weeks ago, I did one whole one on machine embroidery, and I have another machine embroidery one coming here pretty soon that I'm going to put in the rotation. So you're not seeing my blocks every week, right? You know, jazz it up a little bit. So this week I chose, so every week I try to tell you the number of the block because all the blocks are numbered, the title, and who did it, who designed it. And I try to tell you about the fabric that I'm using because I don't know if you guys are like me at all, but when I see somebody's project and I fall in love with the fabric, I might not necessarily want to do the project, but I might want to do something else with that fabric. and then they don't tell you what fabric it is. And I was like, "Mm." Now sometimes it's older fabric, you can't get it. So, I mean, what are you going to do? But I like to tell you because I'm trying to do these in fabrics that I know are still kind of around. Okay. So this week's block is number 12, the Faithful block. Now, those of you who have been watching these and as I've been doing them, have you been noticing something about these names? This week was Faithful. I did one called Blessed. I did one called Cheer, Spirited, Inspire, and Hearty, H-E-R-T-Y, Hearty. And it struck me this week when I pulled this block and looked at the name, because I don't look at the names or anything, I just look at the block, then I look at who made it and all that later, because that's not the important part to me when I'm trying to figure out which one I'm going to do. And so I noticed these are all like really uplifting names to these patterns. So I don't know if the designers named them or if the Fat Quarter Shop, Kimberly Jolly at the Fat Quarter Shop, if she named them. I don't know what that inspiration was, but they inspire me to look at the block and see how that name could fit into this block. So what I did was I went back and I don't sew these blocks soup to nuts with you all here in the video, because at the Fat Quarter Shop, there is a full soup to nuts video for all of these blocks with Kimberly Jolly, and she does a fantastic job. So why would I repeat the wheel there, right? But I try to pick out something in them and maybe like give you some tips, tricks, that kind of thing, and kind of show you what I've been working on. So I went back to the very first video for the very first block, because I thought maybe Kim is going to tell us what inspired these names and stuff, but there wasn't really that information there. There's lots of information, but not that one. So I may go back and see if there's like a preview video, and maybe she did. So I have no idea why these names were like this, but I thought it's kind of great that they were all uplifting names and all during this past year, when we've all just been like going a little stir crazy and needed some uplifting, positive words and stuff in our life. So I loved it. So with this block this week, it's called Faithful. And if you look at this block, this is my finished 9.5 inch block. If you look, there is an X right here, right? And when I saw that, I thought, oh, you know what? Faithful, X's and O's. So my signature is basically my initials, because Diana Mullins Atkinson, you know, it's like that long, right? And so I thought, so it's my initials, and then it's a smiley face. I've always done a smiley face since the 7th grade on my signature, because my dad always told me, make your signature unique so no one else will be able to really copy it. And it came true. Like one year, somebody tried to copy my name on something, and my teachers instantly knew that it wasn't mine because that smiley face was not there. And it didn't really look like my signature. But anyway, and so a lot of times if I'm doing my name in short, I'll do the smiley face as the O, and I'll put a little X in front of it or behind it. So X, or in front of it, yeah, XO. And that will be my signature too on stuff, especially like if I'm leaving notes for my husband and stuff like that. Dave, you know, that's how I sign my name for everything for him. He thinks my name is X smiley face. Where was I going with that now? My name is, X's and O's. Faithful, that's where I was going. Gosh, sometimes you get off on that tangent and the brain just keeps going. But I thought, oh, so X's and O's, love and faithfulness and all that. I thought, well, that's what it kind of will mean to me now. If it meant that to a designer or the Fat Quarter Shop, I don't know, but that's what it meant for me. So, and it made me happy. So this is the Faithful block, and it was designed by Camille Ross Kelly. I hope I pronounced that last name right. I think I did, but of Thimble Blossoms is her business. And the fabric that I used is this one and this one, obviously. So I'm going to tell you, where did I set? Hang on, I have a piece of this yellow one. I love this buttercup yellow color. I mean, I love it. I love it. But can I be honest? We're stitchy friends, right? Can I be honest? I'm not into bees. and there's all this beautiful bee fabric out there. And there's the whole story of the bee and why it shouldn't be able to fly. And it's kind of a miracle that it is. And now I start thinking about the aerodynamics and stuff like that as a scientist and going, yeah, I could tell that story differently. Who cares, right? But I'm not into bees because Dave, my husband, is horribly allergic to them. He got stung by a bee once, and by the time he walked 5 feet to me, his head, because he got stung on his temple, swelled up so badly he was unrecognizable for 2 days. I took him to the hospital. They gave him Benadryl and epinephrine shots and all kinds of stuff. So you've seen the picture in the textbooks and stuff of the Neanderthal man, that head shot, right? That's what Dave looked like ×2. I mean, I was really worried about him, guys. I sat with him there in the emergency room all day. I was really worried about him. And so he carries an EpiPen and that kind of stuff. And we always make sure we're careful, bring bee sting kits with us when we go hiking and stuff. But I'm not, although I know we need bees in the garden and we do things to bring them because it's very important. I'm not wild about them because Dave's deadly allergic to them. And so all these beautiful bee prints, I'm like, yeah, okay, that's really pretty. That's nice. And I can't bring myself. I have like 2 fat quarters like that because they've been gifted to me. And so I will never give them away and I will use them, but I have to find a way to use them where my brain doesn't associate them with an insect that is trying to kill my husband. So recently I picked up a fat quarter pack of fabrics, and one of them in there were these tiny little, now I'm sorry, those are so cute. Those are cutesy little bees. Those aren't going to sting my husband and make him go to the hospital, right? Right. So I just thought those were darling, and I love that color. That butter yellow is truly one of my favorite colors since I was a little kid. And what I like in here is this is not a true black and white. This is kind of a dark charcoal and a cream. So it's that soft, it blends really well with this butter. I really love it. This is from the Springbrook collection. Spring, one word, brook, another word. Springbrook collection by Corey Yoder. And it's available right now. So there were a lot of different fabrics in here in this collection, but I went and I kind of put together my fat quarter pack. So I chose all the prints that had this color in it. And when I went to do this block, I didn't have a secondary fabric in that set that would have given the offset in the colorways. And so I had to pull something else to use. And what I had over here in my white box, shown you this before, my big box of white fabrics and my my muslins and all of that. And the binder went flying because it sits right there. But in there, I had just gotten this a few weeks ago, and I do apologize. I don't know who makes this. I am going to guess, it's a Kona, but I honestly am not sure. Don't forget I said that. But it's this beautiful taupey beige, and I love it. I just think, especially for home deck, this taupey color, 40 years ago, I was in college and I was working in a shoe store as a shoe store manager. And we had cutest little pair, small stacked heel pumps with a peep toe, all leather in this color. And I had those shoes. I wore them to death. They went with everything. They were super comfortable. They're that pair of shoes you want to keep for your whole life. I wish to this day that I still had them, but they were this kind of a taupey color and I loved it. And it went, I thought, really well with the Corey Yoder fabric. Yeah, I love it. So that's what I used for my secondary color or fabric. If I go to my local fabric store, the next time I go, if they still have this and I can find out the information on this, I'll pop it into the description box below, okay? So I apologize, I don't have it now, but you don't, even if you found this fabric, you could choose anything else you wanted to go with it. So that's just what I had on hand here in the studio. Okay, so this block came together super easy. In fact, let me go ahead and flip the camera. There's the sewing machine, which we're going to get to in a minute. All right, so here's the block, and it went together really super easy. Okay, so I'm back. I had to take a quick break because Dave just came home and he brought me my Starbucks. I can't really tip it sideways or it'll spill, which is good because I've got some sort of, well, it's allergies going on and they've hit me hard today. Anyway, so here's my block, and I loved how it turned out. And you can see the little X in it, right? Okay. But what I really noticed first right off are these kind of little squares on point. I just think this block is darling, and it was really simple to put together. Your four corners were just 4 patches, easy peasy lemon squeezy. Yes, yes, yes. Your center was just a square, no problem. And then these units here are all flying geese. And I noticed something because I always try to think about what can I show you today in this video to help you, maybe if you decide to do this block, or will help you in your quilting journey, right? And so I wanted to talk today about flying geese because half square triangles, kind of the basis of patchwork piecing, right? At least I think so. I mean, other than just a square block, the next thing you kind of learn in quilting is how to do a half square triangle. But there is this unit here called a flying geese. And so when I look at these, I consider these the geese's wings, fly, fly, and this the wings, the body. That's just how I see it. You might see it differently, no problem. And it's really quite simple, but for some reason, sometimes it intimidates people. And I think I might know a little bit why. There are more rulers and templates on the market for figuring out flying geese than Carter has pills. I've noticed that. Every time I turn around, there's a new wing this, flying geese that, kind of, and they're not bad. They're great. In fact, I love them. I have drawers full of templates that I use for stuff like this. However, I think when we see that as a new quilter, sometimes that makes us feel like doing this, if we have to have a ruler to do it, it must be difficult. I think that's the thought that goes through our minds as new quilters. And really, you don't need any kind of tool to do this at all other than your rotary cutter or pair of scissors and, you know, your typical stuff. You don't need a ruler for this because all this is a rectangle with 2 flippy corners. Now you've seen me do flippy corners in lots of my other videos because I've done flippy corners in a lot of the other Sewcialite blocks that I've been doing. That's all this is. Now, there are, like I just said, a ton of types of rulers and things to help you make these with precision. And there are some great ones that, you know, that I have and that I like. I'm not bringing them out today though, because I'm going to show you how to do this where you get 4 of them at a time. So in the Sewcialites blocks, we've been making all of our flying geese one at a time. And there's a tiny bit of waste when you trim off your flippy corner, okay? But it's, in the scheme of things, it's not a big deal. I mean, if I were doing big flying geese, you know, I'd be cutting off quite a bit of fabric. That might be something where I would want to consider using this method I'm going to show you today. But for this, it was no problem. But here's my tip to you guys. When you get a pattern, what I do is I try to follow the pattern in regards to how a unit gets made. Now, y'all know you're going to go, Diana, you never follow a pattern. Never seen you follow a pattern. Well, I've been following these Sewcialite patterns. I have been. They've been really good. But you all know I like to flip stuff around and do things different. Yes, I am that way. I can't help myself. but I like to follow how the designer set out to make the individual units. And I'll tell you why. They've done the math. They've made sure it's simple. They've gone through all of the hullabaloo to get it right for you. So you know, if you follow their instructions, you're going to get a correct block made the way and to look the way it's supposed to look. And so in these blocks, they have all of the flying geese done one at a time. But there is a method in which you can do flying geese 4 at a time. So there's a little math, a tiny bit. It's very simple. I hope you all can read that. I hope it's not truly backwards. If it is, I apologize. Flying geese 4 at a time. So you want to take the finished size of your flying geese unit. So let me explain. I know this is probably, for those of you who quilt a lot, you're like, yeah, move on. But if we have new quilters, I don't want to use terms that confuse them. There are 2 measurements in quilting, right? When you're piecing, there's the cut measurement and the finished measurement. So what does that mean? Well, the cut measurement is how big you cut your initial pieces of fabric, your blocks and your rectangles and your triangles and your circles and all of that. That's your cut size. Your finished size is how big it is once it's sewn in, completely sewn into the block. Simple. So we want to take, for making flying geese 4 at a time, we want to take our finished size that we want, okay? So I'm giving you this little bit of math because this is the size we're going to do, but this works for any numbers. Finished size, we want our unit to be 3 inches tall and 5 inches wide. Okay, so we take our width measurement, 5, and we add 1 1/4 inches to it. So any width measurement plus 1 1/4 inches. Finished size plus 1 1/4. That gives us 6 1/4 inches, and that is how big we want to cut one block. Thus, 1 6 1/4 inch block. Ooh, look at that Moda Grunge fabric in red. I love it. Sorry, a little side note there. And then we want to take our height, the height of our unit, which we want to be 3 inches, add 7/8 of an inch to it. That gives us 3 7/8 inches. And we want to cut out 4 blocks that size. 4 blocks, okay? So that's all the math you need to do. But I'm gonna explain to you why I think it's really kind of brilliant that they did these singly. I know math gives some of you a headache, and I'm sorry about that. Math shouldn't be difficult. If it's broken down into very small units and pieces, just like quilting, I think pretty much anybody can get math. But you have to have someone who's willing to walk with you slowly sometimes in that journey. I get it. But so when I wanted my finished size here, when it's in my square, to be 3 inches, well, that was no problem. 3 inches plus 1 1/4 inch, 4 1/4 inches. So I made my one square 4 1/4 inches, okay? Then my height needed to end up being like 1.7 or something odd like that. And when I added that 7/8 to it, I got this really funky little decimal kind of thing going on. 2.6254321 blast off kind of a number. That's really what it was. And I thought, oh, no. You're never going to find 2.6 anything on this ruler. So let's bump that up to the next feasible, usable increment on the ruler. So for me, it was to bump it up to 2.75. And that's what I did. But when I did that, it made this whole unit taller in this direction. here where the wings are. So it was taller this way. It almost looked more like a square. So what I had to do was turn it and trim it down to the size I wanted. There was just a tiny bit, a very tiny bit of waste here. So in the end, doing it individually like they did in the block really made more sense, because you still had waste with this method and you didn't have to go through the hoops and jumps of quilting math. I mean, in quilting math, I like to keep it to add, subtract, multiply, divide, and those last two as little as possible. Add and subtract mostly for you, because that's, everybody can do that with ease pretty much. Excuse me. So so it was really better that these are done in that single form. I mean, if you don't mind adding the extra little bit and then trimming, you could certainly have used this method of 4 to make your 4 yellow with taupe and taupe with yellow. You could have done that way. But if math gives you a headache, they figured it all out with the single units. And that's why following the pattern in that way was a better choice. So we are going to do that right now. So just following that, here, let me bring in, oh, do you guys know what this is? This is a huge honking big sticky notepad. It's a Post-it pad. It's literally by Post-it, so I can say that. I love it. I have more Post-it notes than Carter has pills, guys, seriously, in all kinds of sizes. And when I saw this one, my whole brain just lit up and got so happy, because now I thought, oh, I can make little things like this to show you that aren't on little ones, which I have to like put up here for you to see. I can leave big notes for Dave on the garage door. Hi, honey, can you spray for bugs today, or whatever, you know, I need him to do, or leave him a big love note on here, because that would be a nice thing. And I like to do that sometimes. So that's what this is. So I'm leaving this here. So if you need to write this down, or you want to take a picture, all that kind of stuff. And I'm kind of free form talking with you at the moment. Okay, so that's how I have cut our main block and our wing blocks. So this is going to end up being the body. These will end up being the wings. So we want our piece to end up 3 by 5 inches finished. So 6 1/4, because it's 5 plus 1 1/4, so 6 1/4. 3 plus 7/8, so 3 7/8 inches. Okay. So what you want to do is you want to mark. I try to use a little. You can use any kind of marking device you like: pencil, friction pen, chalk marker, water erasable, air erasable, whatever you like, right? Whatever you like to use. I ended up using a thin line Sharpie on this sample so you could see these lines, because I realized that sometimes when I do this, you can't always see the lines, and I apologize profusely for making that difficult for you in the past. I'm trying to do better. I'm learning with this video stuff. Quilting is my thing. Video is still kind of new to me, right? So what I've done on all 4 of these is I've marked them like I was going to do a half square triangle, okay? Because technically we are kind of are. So you all know that I like to use a magic wand, where I put this center line on each point and I make a line down each side. Those are the lines I'm actually going to sew on. So what we're going to do is we're going to take one block and we're going to, these are all right sides together, pretty sides together, and we're going to lay it in one corner. I always start in the bottom right, but technically you could start over here and go this way, or start, I mean, whatever works for you in that way. Now, you don't see me do this very often, but I am doing it today. I'm going to pin this in place, because you all know usually I use my Wonder Clips, quilting clips, right? But in this case, I just need a pin to hold it there while I get to the sewing machine. And then I'm going to take another block And I'm going to put it in the direct opposite corner. So this is bottom right, upper left for me. And you'll notice that when you do that, look at how those lines come together. Ooh, that's kind of nice, right? Can you see what we're going to be doing here? I bet you can. And I'm going to pin this in place. And we're going to go over to the sewing machine. I am going to sew directly on this line all the way down. And then I'm going to turn and I'm going to sew directly on this line all the way down. Okay, so let's flip the camera over. And there we go. We're at the sewing machine. And now we're going to go sew. All right. So make sure everything is still nice and lined up. Right, have it, yep, good. So like I do always, I will tell you today I'm using Aurifil 50 weight thread. I'm using number 2021, which is a white, just happened to be what is on my machine. I normally use 2600, which is this dove gray, which I love. I use that almost exclusively for my piecing, unless there's one other color I use all the time for piecing and quilting, and that's 2835, that mint color. It will blend in. You think it won't, but it will blend into just about any color under the sun. I really love this one, especially for quilting. For piecing, mainly I use the 2600 dove gray, but the white is already in here, so we'll go with it. I've got just a white bobbin in. I am using turn my machine back on, set for something else, a 3.5 width, which doesn't really make a difference. I'm using a 2.5 stitch length. You could use a 2. If you are someone who likes to press their seams open, I would suggest you use a 1.8 or smaller stitch length, okay? All righty, so, and I'm using an 8012 Microtex needle. If you are new to quilting, you could use a 7511 needle or an 8012. I suggest you use a sharp needle on quilting cottons. It makes a better stitch on the fabric, on a woven fabric. Okay, so now I'm just going to stitch on this line. And I never, under any circumstance, stitch over my pins. I know there are people out there that do, and I'm not here to harp on anyone, but I'm just going to tell you right now, the first time you've seen someone get a needle in their eye when a needle breaks, you will never do that again. The least you're going to do is break a needle when it hits the pin. You could damage your sewing machine, and what could happen is if that breaks, it could end up in your eye. About 3 or 4 years ago, I was sewing one night, and I have my glasses on, and my needle broke. It wasn't because I had left a pin in, it just, for whatever reason, it broke. And when it did, the tip of that needle, the tiniest piece of it, came up and flew and hit me directly in the center of my glasses lens. If I had not had my glasses on, I would have been in the hospital that night getting a needle stuck or taken out of my eye. I could have ended up blind. I could have ended up with some sort of severe injury. So, I mean, I don't go around preaching, because my whole thought is you sew the way you want to sew. It's your craft. It's your art form. It's up to you. But in regard to something like this that is a safety concern for your health, I get a little preachy. So please, I apologize for that. And you can just say, yeah, whatever, if you want to. But I'm just asking you to please be careful and don't sew over your pins. Okay, we're going to flip back over. Now we're back over here. And now I have 2 sewn lines, right? So now we're going to take our ruler and our rotary cutter. You could use scissors if that's what you have and like. And I'm going to place my 1/4 inch line on my ruler directly on my sewn line. Okay, So what that does is it ends up getting my edge right down the center there, basically. And I'm going to cut this in half. And now I have these two funny looking little guys, right? And when I flip them here, you'll see in a minute, I'm going to have these two even funny. It kind of looks like a heart, right? It does. Okay. So what I like to do, I don't know if I've shown you this yet. I think maybe I have. This is not my idea. Excuse me, so I can't claim it. I learned this little idea from Chris Thurgood of My Girlfriend's Quilt Shop. When she's flipping her HSTs and stuff like that, she comes in and she pre-cuts her dog ears off. You just do a little to get them off. That way, when you flip and you press, you're not having to then go back and cut your dog ears off. I find it genius, to be honest. And I've been using it ever since. And because I learned that from Chris, I will give her full credit. I don't even know if it's her original idea, but for me, that's who taught it to me. So she gets all the credit for that. And I love it. So now I'm going to bring the pressing mat over. And I've been quilting a long time, and I like, I have some rulers and templates that have the dog ears. They're called engineered corners. So that when you cut them with the template, they cut like that. I never thought about just doing that with my rotary cutter on my, when I'm doing my flips. I don't know. You can't think of everything in this world, I guess. So you all know I like to prep my seams. Oops, I should have pressed it, sorry. And I use the Acorn Precision Piecing pen there to prep my fabric. This is just going to give me the most beautiful flat seam. And I'm pressing. Oh, look how lovely that is. Look how lovely. Doing that from the back, that'll kind of set that seam since I forgot to set it in the front. And there we go. And I'm going to put it over here. I'm going to put a tailor's clapper on there. Now I'm going to set my seams this time. I'm going to be good. And I'm going to put a little bit of this pressing solution. If you want to know more about this, I think my very first Good Gadgets episode, I talked about this. Or you can send me a message or a comment, put it in the comments if you want to know more about that, and I can certainly tell you. Okay, and now I'm going to press these. Oh, I like the red with this teal color. Those really do look like hearts to me. Do they to you, or am I out of my mind? Isn't that a heart? I can see like doing some funky stitching here and doing this as an applique piece. Oh, this is how ideas get born, folks. I'm just telling ya. It makes your mind go, ooh, I could do it for this. I could do it for that. All right, we're going to put our little clapper there. And in one of my Good Gadgets videos, I talk about the clapper too. Might be the same one as the pen, I'm not sure. All right, I'm going to slide that back around. All right, so now we have these two. Well, they're not quite flying geese yet, right? So now we're going to take one of our other squares, and we're going to put it on here this way. I want to make sure that's going to go out this way. Yes, that's going out this way. Yes. The reason I'm doing that is because when I made those, I should have 4, right? Because this is 4 at a time. I'm trying to find my little messed up one. Look what I did. I don't know what happened there, but it's certainly, I don't know what happened there. So I ended up losing 2 of them. which is fine. It was for demonstration purposes, but I wanted to make sure that when I cut that and sew that back, yes, I'm going to have a flying geese there. I don't want to mess that up again. All right, so I'm going to do just what I did before and put a little bit of a pin in here. And then I'm going to take my other unit, my other heart unit, the heart of the flying geese. And I'm going to put my other wing square right there and pin it on as well. Okay, and we'll flip the cameras over to the sewing machine. There we go. So I have to kind of walk around the table to come over here to the sewing machine. That's why you hear my feet going clunk, 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 clunk. All right, so we're going to do the same thing here as we did before. We're just going to line up on one of our lines on one side, come down and around, and we're going to do both of our units that same way. Take the pin out, and I'm using these little glass-headed pins by Clover. I like small glass-headed pins for one, if you end up pressing on top of one, because occasionally you'll end up like leaving a pin in or you're trying to press around something, but if they're glass, they're not going to melt. And I like these really fine pins for my piecing. If I'm going to use a pin in my piecing, like these pins here, they're plastic headed and you can tell they're thicker. You could use them for piecing, but I use these more for crafting and stuff that I don't care about as much the size of the hole. I like to be really careful in my piecing and not do a big hole. So I get this really fine pin. And these are made for piecing. So, and they're that glass head. All right. As I said, mine are from Clover, but I know there are other brands out there that have them too. And for someone who doesn't use pins anymore as kind of in general, I have a ton of pin cushions with pins in them. Can I just tell you? I mean, I am of the opinion you always need pins in the house for something. People who I do theater costumes for like me a whole lot better when I wonder clip them together instead of pin them together. I can tell you that. All right, so we're going to do our second one. Oh, there goes my voice again. Oh, doggone it. I don't feel bad. It's just I can't. I can't talk. Take that pin out. And flip it around. You notice I don't cut that thread when I flip it. I just wait and do it all at the end. Sometimes I don't even, sometimes it gets cut when I'm doing other things and I don't even cut it. It actually wastes less thread than the way we traditionally cut at the end of each one. All righty, wastes less time, takes less time. I shouldn't say waste, takes less time. All righty, so we're going to flip our camera back over. Here we are. A little bit of my coffee there. All righty, so now we have two units that look like this. So now they look like a heart unit that has a blanket over it. I don't know, you can call that whatever you want to. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to line up my ruler, 1/4 inch mark right on that sewn line, cut right in half. Oh, it's getting exciting now. It's almost time for the big reveal. I feel like we should have balloons or something, right? And confetti. We can pretend like that's confetti. All right, now look what happens. Bloop, 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 bloop. Oh, it's a flying geese unit. Yes, we're going to have to do a trim up. Who cares? I mean, yes, we will have to do that trim up right there. A dog ear. I didn't mean to be so flip about that. Yes, we will have to do a little trim up there, but we get 4 flying geese units this way, all the same size. We love that. So if you are coming up with your own flying geese for a pattern, then or you're not told how to make them and you can do the quick and simple math, knock yourself out and do it this way, and you'll get 4 at a time. And even sometimes if I only need 2 for something, I'll make 4 and I'll put the other 2 in my scrap bin because they will end up in a scrappy quilt someday. Yep. Oh, look how beautiful that looks on the back. Now, I don't, you know me, I don't do those open seams. I've tried it now a couple times for some stuff. I've tried to open my horizons and all that, and there was a need, and I was glad I did. But for stuff like this, I don't. I'm a come to the dark side kind of person, or to whatever side makes sense for the pressing. It might not necessarily be the dark side, it might be the lighter side, but whatever makes sense. Okay, hang on. Yeah. Sometimes I don't pull my corners back quite the way I need to, and they end up not pressing quite right. So I'm gonna just redo that a little bit. Yeah, I like that better. Okay. Put that down there. Set my seam. You all only knew how many times I forget to set my seams. Or not forget, I just don't do it. I'm honestly not sure it makes a huge difference, but I know the idea is to close the fabric in and all. I get that. Yeah, I get that for sure. Oh, see, I just forgot again. I try to be good on camera with you guys, but I'm not. I am just a quilter like the rest of you. I'm just human. And I've been making quilts for over 50 years. I've not had one fall apart on me yet, so that I know of. I mean, no one's ever said, oh, hey, that quilt you gave me was a piece of trash and it's fallen apart and is a piece of junk. No, I've never had anyone say that. Thank goodness. They're either too kind or it hasn't happened. And I'm hoping it's the latter, that it hasn't happened. All righty. So I'm just going to take, I have a little ruler. This is a little Tula ruler, so you know I love it, right? And I'm just going to use it to, if I need to do any, what I call micro cleanup, like I know I need to get rid of that little point there. So I'm going to, yeah, let's see. I mean, we're talking hairs here because these are going to trim up so nicely. But while I'm doing it, I just check out everything. Because I don't know about you, I don't know any perfect piecers. Even my grandmother, and you know that, you all know, I think she is, you know, God's gift to quilting. I honestly, I do. She was a truly amazing quilter. I mean, you don't get your quilts in a state exhibition from the government in the Capitol if you're not good, like Dave's cousin, Margaret. She is a gift to the quilting world. She's a true artist. Her stuff hangs in the National Gallery and stuff, for goodness sakes. Lord knows that's better than me. But I'm sure they would all tell you they're not perfect either. And they're not. But they are lovely, lovely people. I love them to pieces. Okay, pretty good there. And it never hurts to take the time just look, guys, we're talking like little hairs here of stuff to come off, but it doesn't, in the end, the precision will be your friend. And you know, my motto is that piecing, like this one is off. I've done something here. This is kind of wacky, but it's still going to turn out all right. Piecing is an art of precision. There's lots of, I don't want to call them cheater ways. I'm going to say handy helper ways of doing things. But in the end, you still need to go for the best precision you can have, because over time, if you're off on your seams, especially over time, your piece will either end up being bigger or smaller than you intended. And if it's just a single piece, that might not make a difference. But if you're going for, this piece is really off. I've done something on this one, but I'm going to trim it and I'm still going to use it. That little bit of being off could end up really causing you a problem in a large quilt. Now, if it's a, like I said, if you're doing one big single block quilt or something, it's probably not going to matter a hill of beans. Not at all. All right. So go for the best precision you can, but there's no judging. There's no quilting police. And if anybody tries to tell you differently, just plug your ears. La 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 la. Either they're, well, I'm not going to go into that. That's a private discussion for another time. If you want to know my views on people who tell you that you must do things this way or that way, get a hold of me. We'll have a chat. We'll have a coffee and we'll have a chat. Oh, that coffee is good. So the coffee today, salted caramel nitro cold brew. If you don't like coffee because it's bitter, try a nitro coffee made with nitrogen rather than oxygen. It's much smoother. I understand why the gentlemen and people that are big into nitro beers like nitro beer, because it's much smoother. Okay, that's the one I think is a little bit goofy, but here we are, my fellow stitchers. And look, when you do it this way, you have plenty of room for your 1/4 inch seam allowance. You're not going to break up your point. You're not going to sew into your points. And there you have 4. Let's see. How do I have to? Oh, let me just move this up better and then you can see these, all 4 of them. It's always a game to try to get everything into that view for you. But there you go. There's your 4 at a time. There's the 2 little ones that I did where I lost the other 2 to my goofy sewing. I seriously don't know what I did there. But that's all it takes to do 4 flying geese at a time. So if you're coming up with your own sizing for your own block, you're designing it yourself, you're putting it together, you're playing, and try that sometime. You might be somebody, you do all these quilts from patterns and you're good at quilting now. If you do all these quilts from patterns, sit back and think about all the knowledge that you have accumulated by doing that. Tons, 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 tons. So take a day and sit down with your rotary cutter in some, you know, not your best fabric, maybe if you're just playing and practicing, but practice. Take a pen and paper and kind of draw out, see what you like. Like gridded paper really helps because each little block can be a square, or you can go, okay, 4 blocks is 1 square. You can kind of divide it out that way and play for yourself and see what you come up with. You might come up with something you've already done. That's okay. The idea was you were using your imagination, you were being inspired, you were playing. So try that out. I know you'll come up with something great. So that's a great method if you're doing your own designing and you need to figure out your geese. It's great if you're in a pattern and they don't tell you what style of formation to use. Sometimes they'll just say, make 4 flying geese. Well, how do you want me to make them? As long as they give you that finished size for the unit, you can use this little formula that I showed you on my great big Post-it notepad that I love so much. And you can make those flying geese easy, and you can make 4 of them at a time. And like I said, if you only need 2, put the other 2 in your scrap bin and put it into a big scrappy quilt later. And then you'll go, oh, I remember when I did that, and da-da-da. That's how I think. Anyway, thank you all so much. Oh, one more thing. So today is Sunday, and I know it's late in the day for you all, but for some of you anyway. But I wanted to tell you, Tuesday is my Wing Your Way Home tabletopper class workshop. If you want to join us today, the end of today, tonight, is the registration deadline so that I can get all the patterns and everything out to people tomorrow on Monday. So please, if you want to join us, please do. Believe it or not, even though that looks like there's a whole bunch of flying geese in there, there's not a single one, not one. This pattern is great for beginners. because you're only dealing with squares and half square triangles. And also you're going to get, I'm getting it on the wall. I haven't finished the whole thing, but I've done the top part of it. I'm going to show you how to do it in another style too. Same exact blocks we use in this, and you'll have a way to make, instead of a square table topper, a longer rectangular table topper. And this came about because I made a big mistake when I was cutting out squares to make another one of these. So, you know, sometimes good things come from mistakes, right? And that is actually kind of a pattern, an older pattern, but the way this comes together is called corn and furrows or something, or fields and furrows or something like that. But I call this peppermint twist. So, yes. Anyway, come join us for that workshop. You can sign up at my website, heartfeltcreativewithdiana.com. The information is down in the description below. There's still a few pieces. I keep these workshops kind of small so we can all interact. So there's still a few spaces left if you want to join. It's Tuesday the 17th, which is coming up, 1 p.m. Central Time, 7 p.m. in the UK, 2 p.m. That's 2 p.m. on the East Coast, 1, 12, 11 out on the West Coast of the United States. And you will have the opportunity to use the video for 48 hours after the class. So if you can't come to the workshop, but you want to do it, you'll get that video for 48 hours, and you'll get a fully written pattern. So you won't need the video to do the pattern. You'll get a fully written pattern, okay? All right, thank you so much for joining me. Have a great rest of your Sunday. As I always say, go sew life beautiful. Bye now, everyone.